Hey everyone, Dave or EphiTV here, back with another rare in-person video. I know most of my videos are like challenge runs or looking into games where you don't see much of my face, so I figured I'd mix it up a little bit, do something lighter, something quicker, so I could post a little bit more often and just have more content out there. Now if you've been on the internet at all in the past couple of weeks, you've probably seen plenty of stuff about the GTA Definitive Editions. They're a remake of GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, made by an outside party, not Rockstar Games. It's actually made by Grove Street Games, which is mainly responsible for mobile ports of big games. Anyways, jumping ahead, the remake, remaster, whatever you want to call it, is kind of a mess. It's super buggy, it's got some weird character models, some weird textures, lots of oddities that people have been finding, and I thought we'd take a look at them. Now I know there's already been plenty of videos looking at all the funny bugs in these games, but I thought we could take another angle on it. You see, I'm a game developer myself, so I have a little bit of knowledge what's going on behind the scenes here. Sure, there's lots of bugs and funny videos we can check out along the way, but let's try and take it one level deeper and see what's actually happening here. Starting it off, we have this big collage of all sorts of pictures comparing it to the original games. Now, as you can see, they changed the models and textures quite a lot, even to the point where some of them just don't look anything like the originals. I mean, if you look down here, this old man is now like a young guy. If you look over here, these arms look thoroughly broken. I think that's an issue with the skeleton in the model. Not actually the skeletal bones that the character would have, but the rig that the model is using is not meant to deform in that way. There's a lot of really wacky characters and not very great upgrades in my opinion, but one of my favorite ones has to be right here in the middle. If you zoom in on this guy's jersey, you can see the number 9 painted over what looks like the number 7 protruding from the jersey. Now if I had to guess, this is a pretty straightforward normal map issue. Now you see a normal map is a texture that changes how light interacts with a 3D object. So you can use it to create details where there are none in the model. It looks like they used the normal map of a jersey with a 7 on it, but then decided to paint a 9 over it for some reason. I don't know why this happened, but it did, and you end up with great bugs like this. Moving on, we have a video of a bug that actually sort of existed in the original Vice City, where the super cops could lock to your vehicle and pull you out. This bug would be much harder to track down than all the other visual ones. As you can tell, it made it into the original game, but not in such a bad way. Something to do with the police AI sticking to your vehicle when they're within a certain distance. Could be that the distance is wrong or something else completely. We can't really know without looking into the code on this one. After that, we have this great straightforward invisible bridge. The character can walk out onto this invisible spot where a bridge should be. There's collision and everything. They can walk in space, and as soon as they walk over the edge of where the supposed bridge is, they fall into the water. Now this one's really obvious to everybody watching that the bridge is missing. It could be that the renderer for the bridge is just turned off, so the bridge is technically there, it's just not rendering. It could be that the collision for the bridge was baked into the scene so that it's always there no matter if the bridge exists or not. It's only a small number of issues that could really boil down to this, but if anybody had actually played this, it would be a pretty straightforward bug to find. After this, we got one of my personal favorites where if you wiggle your car left and right, it grows exponentially larger and it doesn't seem to ever stop growing. I don't know how much you can wiggle it. Could it take up the entire world if you keep wiggling it? Who knows? Now at first glance, this bug seems really confusing and hard to track down, but I think it might actually have to do with the way that the animation works for the car. I think when you wiggle the car from side to side, it's applying a little bit of scaling to give that cartoonish animation to it, which should get reset as soon as the animation ends. But if you keep wiggling it, it keeps adding up over time and the car gets bigger and bigger. Now this doesn't happen in the original game, so if it did have animation scaling, it was always reset back to the original size. But in this one, I guess they never tried it. It is kind of a weird case to try out who wiggles their car constantly, but it makes for great bugs like this. Next up, we've got a video where lightly touching pedestrians and presumably other objects too does damage to your car. And after touching enough pedestrians very lightly, the car explodes. And I think this one's kind of straightforward. In any game where you're driving a car or a vehicle that can take damage from the surroundings, there's usually a minimum threshold of like how much force needs to hit the car to actually do damage. It seems like in this game there's no minimum threshold, so you could hit something at like 0.01 miles per hour and it still does damage to the car. And as a side effect of this, I'm sure it makes the game much harder to play if your car can just explode from the lightest touch. Following that up, we have one where an NPC gets taken out in a cutscene. Now this actually isn't specific to just the Definitive Edition. This kind of happens in all Rockstar games as far as I'm aware, because the cutscenes are actually happening in the real world, so things can spill over into them. There's even ones as recently as Red Dead 2 where like your horse in a cutscene can walk into a fire and then light you on fire. It's kind of ridiculous. So as far as bugs go, this is always funny, but not entirely the fault of the port. I mean, it does happen in all the other Rockstar games too, so whatever. After that, we've got one where a bunch of bikers drive headfirst into the player's car. It seems like these bikers want to run over the player, but they don't realize that he's in the car, so they just go for him anyways. There's some sort of AI not checking all the conditions of the player, so they go to run him over, and they can't. Next up, we got one where you're on a chase mission, chasing down this motorbike, and it drives through a car, and the car just gets sent flying. Now for some chase missions like this, instead of programming them like a real motorcycle, they're just kind of locked on a fixed track. They're more like a train than a motorcycle at this point, so anything that gets in their way is going to get blasted off into space. This is a bug, but it's also kind of intentional design so it doesn't ruin the mission. It's funny, it's weird, I don't know if there's an easy solution to this one without redesigning the missions. Here we have a great one where the newly added rain effect, which looks terrible by the way, is just completely broken. As you fly your plane down, the rain seems to go upwards, and also you can note that the rain doesn't render over the ocean. The ocean renders on top of the rain, so the rain seems to disappear where the ocean is. This one is just messed up in a ton of ways. Obviously the rendering order is messed up, the rain effect should be on top of everything else, it should be like a screen effect, but it seems to be like a world effect. So it could be a particle system where the rain is actually falling from the sky and not just rendered from your camera like a lot of games do, which can give you some weird things happening, like the plane going downwards faster than the rain is going downwards. I'm not quite sure what's happening here, but it's very broken. We got another great one where a player jumps into some enemies and flies up a railing. Now I think from having watched GTA speedruns in the past, this is actually possible in the original game. It's something to do with trying to land the player back on the ground and the physics not knowing how to sort that out, so it just launches them in some direction. I'm sure some speedrunners could give you a better breakdown of how this actually works. Next up, we have one of my personal favorites in the how could they have possibly missed this category. Now this one is actually so obvious for anybody who's ever touched a 3D modeling program that I'm just going to go ahead and show you what's wrong with it right here. So I'm going to open up Blender right here, I'm going to make a cylinder, do all the regular things, cut it out, make it into that shape of the nut in the picture. Alright, look, here's the general shape of the nut from the game. That took me like a minute to make in Blender. I'm going to apply a subdivision modifier. It looks more like a donut at this point, but then I'm going to say, oh, actually these parts should be flat. So I'm just going to add some loops there. Alright, that's looking really close. I just need to do the same thing on the bottom here. And look, here's the exact same issue that we see in the Definitive Edition screenshot. The fix for this one is obviously super straightforward, just don't apply a subdivision modifier to this. It's already in the shape of a nut, I don't know what else you would need to get this joke across. And last but not least, we got a fan favorite video. I've seen this one posted everywhere, from Reddit to Twitter to YouTube. People just love this bug, and for good reason. Now this one's actually more simple than it may look. You see, in the original game, when you use the backwards camera, the camera stops rendering your player model, so you can see behind you even though you're technically in front of the player. In this game, they just forgot to do that for whatever reason. It's actually a pretty simple fix, but it made it into the game, and here we are. I could go on and on with this all day looking at bugs I found on Reddit or Twitter or wherever, but I think this is a good stopping point. I didn't want to make this video too long. If you wanted my opinion on it, I don't think we really needed a remake or remaster of these games so soon. I mean, they're not that old. Maybe ask me again in like 10 or 20 years. But I guess Rockstar is just kind of holding out for that GTA 6, which could also be 10 years away, who knows. If you like this video concept, let me know in the comments. I'd always be happy to look at more bugs from basically any game and try to break down what's going on. It's cool looking at things from a game development perspective while also being able to laugh at how funny the bugs are in the first place. So yeah, let me know if I should do some more videos like this. Otherwise, I've got some other ideas I've been planning for a while, hoping to get some videos out on those in the near future. Feel free to subscribe if you want to help support the channel, or check out some of my older content if you want to watch some more stuff. But until then, I'll see you all in the next one.